and welcome everybody. Delighted that you're here and honored that we get to engage this conversation once again about this awesome set of tools that come out of the first century Aramaic language that teach us how to remove the patterns of hostility and fear from our minds and change our reflections in the world. Change the game, every game of life. And opening to the guidance that really shows us how to play the game of life as true humans. So we are honored that you're here and delighted to be in this conversation. Our Course in Miracles lesson today, we'll step into and look at the next level of how we see this idea of miracles that the Course presents. And the Course doesn't present miracles as something magical, something, out of the ordinary happening. The Course presents the idea of miracles as our return to the truth of who we are and functioning as human beings. So a lot of what we end up experiencing is the exact opposite of what the games the world would play. So we function differently than the world of hostility and fear. And the bottom line definition of a miracle in the Course is that a miracle is a shift in perception. And when you think about that, when you realize that the perceptual constructs of our mind come from eons of building brain cells, building content that ends up reflecting as our perception, and you realize that the massive amount of energetic dynamic that needs to change. I have a friend who's a medical doctor, and he just loved to sit and do worksheets one-on-one with me, because each time he came, and it didn't make sense. He didn't get it. But each time that we would locate, key him in, he always seemed to need help to get to the right goal. And he would cancel that goal. He'd just go, he'd like do this little quiver, and it's like, something just changed. I don't know what it is. Something just changed. That's the miracle. That's what we're heading for. And that word forgiveness does not mean I'm going to let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. That word forgiveness is a tool with which you make those shifts, with which you create miracles, shifts in perception, where you see differently. And a lot of people don't understand what's really going on there, and therefore don't really value that. They'll do a worksheet or two, and they'll get that shift, and they'll go, oh, well, so what? But when you realize what's really changed to do that, and the technology that Yeshua developed 2,000 years ago for doing that, it is monumental if people will engage it. If you haven't engaged the forgiveness process yet, we invite you to go to our website, which is www.whyagain.org. And if you click the first two words on the page, start here, it'll walk you through the whole forgiveness process. You can do the worksheet on the website. There are new levels of that are in process and on the way. You can also go to your app store in your phone. Thank you, Jeanie, for creating the world's first forgiveness app. Whether you've got an iPhone or an Android, doesn't matter. Go to your app store, type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and you will have the tools to walk you through how to change the content of your mind, how to shift the root of perception, and therefore experience miracles. And so our lesson today, lesson 298, and I think we're a lesson ahead. We'll catch up on that on Monday. And the Course language I offer is a little bit off here. The use of the word love as a verb, something we're going to do to each other, is not our desire here. The use of the word love is to represent the essence of our true nature. So 298, the key thought in the lesson, where it starts out and says, I love you, is it's rather, I choose to be. I am willing to stand in the space of this active presence of love creator. And I'm willing to be that space for anything that shows up in my world. So the lesson starts out with the thought of my gratitude permits my love to be accepted without fear. So can I accept myself as this active presence of love and stand in gratitude for that? You know, the awesome fact that you get to experience a human life, whatever your condition is, the awesome fact that you get to experience a human life. And I'd offer that human life ends for most people. And it ends very early. It ends, at least the awareness of having a human life ends when people lose their capacity to be in gratitude. When they lose their ability to be in thankfulness and appreciation for what they have. So my gratitude permits me to accept myself as this human being, this presence of love, without fear. So if I have a mindset, if I have in Aramaic, and we've talked about this, haven't talked about it on the show for a while, but we have this condition called Rachma. Rachma is a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain. Number one is a gateway for human life to enter the human form. And number two, keeps our mind on track with those brain cells keyed to love. If Rachma is not set, then we can wander off into hostility and fear in a heartbeat. If you hold the newborn child and you tap into the essence of that newborn, you get to experience what the essence, what the presence of love is. And remember, that can be a way to reconnect to who you are as a human being. So when I stand in that gratitude and I'm free of any activity of fear, I may not have removed all fear from my structure yet, but at any given moment I'm free of the activity of fear. I'm restored to the truth of who I am, my reality. All that intruded on my holy sight, forgiveness takes away. There's the miracle. Anything that can be resonated in you that's based on hostility or fear is the opportunity to engage in the forgiveness process and remove what keeps you linked to the vision that comes from your wholeness. That word holy has been degraded to, well, it's when you're down on your knees. And no. It's when you're connected to the whole truth of who you are. So as I do that, I draw near to the end of senseless journeys, mind careers, and artificial values. You know, we've been taught to want and desire so many things that have no value whatsoever. So I accept instead what the Creator established as mine. Sure that in that alone, I will be removed from the generational construct of hostility or fear, removed from the possibility of forgetting my identity and thinking that I am an hostility or fear-based being, and sure that I go through that fear to meet the truth of my being, the truth of who I am. So the meditative aspect of this lesson today, Father, I come to you today because I would not follow any way but yours. In other words, recognizing that in this energy field called love, I live, move, and have my being. And if there's any guidance in me to go in another direction, I'm committed to changing that. And that happens layer by layer, piece by piece, sometimes 20 times a minute to make that shift. I recognize, Creator, that you are beside me, within me, beneath me, above me, to my left, to my right. Is there anywhere I can go without your presence being there, without meeting you? The only place I can go without meeting the presence of love is into a perceptual construct that convinces me that something else is more valuable. So this is the way to the presence of love. I'm grateful for your holy gifts of certain sanctuary and escape from everything that would obscure the presence of myself as love, the presence of you as love, and the presence of this created essence that is at the root of my being, where I am joined and connected with all of the world. I love what Einstein says. He says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. It's a lie. It's a fraud. Now, you can run into circumstances and situations that resonate hostility or fear because the activity that runs your field and your creative process is controlled by what you believe and trust in at the deepest levels of your mind. Unfortunately, most of what people trust in and believe in is unconscious. It's hidden from them. It's something that developed through generations and generations and generations of not knowing. The way you can tell what it is that you trust in at the deepest levels of your mind, what you really believe in, there's only one way that that's knowable. I probably shouldn't say only one way, but one of the primary ways that you will be able to observe that is by watching your language when you're under stress. 2,000 years ago, in the scriptures, they talked about take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. What does that mean? How do you take care of the heart? You observe from the space of love. And if you don't have this capacity, then you develop it. It's a practice. It's a tool. It's a practice. It's a how-to. Become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions, and watch your words when you're under stress. That will tell you what you believe in. As I said yesterday, you may say, oh, yes, I believe in God. But in hostility and fear, when the stress is up and the chips are down, I turn to rage or manipulation or fear or intimidation. Well, if that's what my words turn to, then that's what I believe in. And I'm fooling myself to think that I believe in the Creator, that I believe in the presence of love. I'm kidding myself because I always turn to what I trust most deeply. And if under the greatest stress, you turn to the lowest common denominator in your mind, you got to stop tricking yourself. You've got to let go of what you've been brainwashed into and start to rebuild a true relationship with the presence of love that is in you, that makes you up, and that flows through everything around you. So you have to drop out of the non-human race. You have to stop playing the game as, if we look at just watch the television set, watch the news, watch what's being reported, watch what's happening at the highest and lowest levels in the world. And you see what the world is brainwashing people to believe in. What you believe in runs your energy field that you call your body. If there are diseases showing up in your body, it tells you that you believe in something that isn't true. So now am I willing to tap into that which I believe in that isn't true and turn it over to forgiveness for healing? Am I willing to do that? We're here hopefully to inspire you to do that and to learn ourselves to do that on deeper and deeper levels as we each get to confront the parts of our minds that hold something other than love as the truth of what's going on. So we're honored and delighted that you're here to share this conversation. Jeanie, is Dr. Tim with us today?
He is, and he's on.
Awesome. Let's say hello to the young man. How are you, sir?
He's on. I don't know.
I'm here.
Are you mute challenged, Tim?
There
it is. Hey, welcome.
I had
welcome.
inadvertently turned 2 mute buttons on and only turned 1 off. So
I understand
I'm here.
That one.
We had our support group last night. We had I don't know, 6 or 7 individuals plus myself, and a delightful conversation and people discussing worksheets and the difficulty of getting my mind to question at deeper and deeper levels the conditioning which has been so pervasive in the culture, and to follow the message of A Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery all the way through, despite the ideas that my mind will throw up at every turn, that I need to be able to stay angry, or I need to be able to beat myself up because I've made this mistake or that mistake for so long, or I've wasted time, or I've ruined this relationship. And we had some very, very loving, very intelligent, very thoughtful conversations about how difficult it is to break that old pattern, especially because, as you were just talking about, when the stress is up, the old automatic pattern seems to just be overpowering. It's just, that stuff that's happening from my unconscious mind is so powerful because it gains so much momentum before I become aware of it, that by the time it breaks through into my conscious mind, it seems like my conscious mind has decided this is the right thing to do. This must be the truth. And as we've seen so often on the show, if we help somebody step through a worksheet process or a mind shifter and they get to slow down the processing of the mind and they get to reveal that unconscious and let it spill out on the paper, then they get to see how ridiculous it is, how self-contradictory it is. And so it was a very, very detailed and long discussion, and somebody talked about a worksheet he had done that provided some very powerful insights because he had been holding a judgment about someone from his past for a lot of years. And something motivated him to do a worksheet in this past week, and he shared it with us, and all of the revelations and the shift in perception that he was able to reach, that's just, just like you were talking about in your intro, it's easy to just say, oh yeah, I got a shift in perception, gee, that's an interesting tool, and move on. However, if I slow down and I actually look at the miracle of, oh my gosh, this thing is a caterpillar, and a week or two later it's a butterfly. That's amazing. That's an incomprehensible process. Well, if I slow down and look at what happens when I get a dramatic shift in a worksheet process, like Susan Bingham called in on August 6th and had absolute terror, or not absolute, she was 9 2/3 on a scale of 0 to 10 terror. And all we did was talk through the worksheet process. I read what was on the page, she gave her responses, and by the end of that process, this 9 2/3 level terror was down to a level 2 upset. And she was joking, she was chuckling, and that's that shift in perspective that you were talking about, which if I slow down and look at it, that's a miracle. That's amazing. That's something that for the average person conditioned in our culture is impossible, especially in such a short period of time, especially just from the application of such a simplistic process of reading words on a page and filling in the blanks, and then taking a breath and just asking to be shown something. That's just, it's awe-inspiring to me. And that's what somebody shared last night in the support group, is that he had this deep, dramatic, powerful shift in his perception that he'd been holding on to for decades. So that's my offering for today. That's basically what's happening in practice and in the support group. People are using the tools, stepping into altered perception, and some of us are actually recognizing those benefits and choosing to stay with them and build on them and make it a daily practice.
That's pretty sweet, isn't it?
Indeed.
And, with your sharing, you inclined me to just take another step, so that if you've got anybody out there that, hasn't been engaged in the work for a long time, or, is somewhat new to it, to recognize that, one, perception, and, Anil Seth's video that you introduced to us some time ago about perception. If you go to your video YouTube and type in TED Talk, Anil, Anilseth, Seth, and he talks about the fact from the point of view of a neuroscientist, the brain doesn't have any light in it. The brain doesn't get to hear any sounds. Well, what happens here? According to the data brought in by the senses, the brain makes its best guess about what's going on out there. The people who are good at making those guesses, that is, their content is accurate relative to what's happening in the world, we call them smart. The people whose guesses are way off base, we call them, right down to the point of mentally retarded, because their perceptual systems don't operate in a way that makes good guesses. But the whole construct, and we can turn to the CIA. If you go to our website, Jean's got a link there for the CIA.gov website, where they've spent who knows how many millions of your dollars studying perception. You can download their book called The Study of Human Intelligence, and there's a chapter on perception. And here, after all that money being spent, is what the CIA says. Quote, "The mind does not record reality, the mind generates reality. We each live in our own reality. And when you realize that your perceptual constructs are the product of a million people in your bloodline building brain cells toward a certain way of seeing the world, and you are the inheritor of that, and according to what in your indoctrination in the world is presented to you, those neural pathways become easily excited and become the automatic constructs that your mind makes. But recognize perception as a construct, and it's based on tens, hundreds, millions of lives in your bloodline that their brain's best guess went in this direction. If it went in the direction of hostility, you'll notice that, much as you say to yourself, I never want to be angry again, hostility is just, can be an instant reaction to a stress or sadness or fear or anger or depression or hatred. And that's what Tim's talking about when you start to question, because every perception is a result of mind energy being stimulated within our structure. And we are the recipients of 1,000 generations of mind energy. So why is it miraculous when you get a shift in perception? I mean, there's no way to calculate. How many brain cells have to fire to produce this particular perception compared to that one? I don't know if anybody's even tried to quantify that. 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, quadrillion. Remember you were a kid and you went, yeah, billion, trillion, quadrillion. I mean, who knows what goes into that? And when you recognize that through a simple forgiveness process developed by this genius 2,000 years ago called forgiveness, you can collapse the surface mind's best guess, its perceptions based in hostility or fear. You can access the parts of your mind that are locked into hostility and fear-based perceptions. You can expose that data to the active presence of love and dissolve it in an instant. That's what's happening when you forgive. And yes, I'm going to agree with you, Tim. Too often people go, oh, that was cute. That was cool. Oh, yeah, I was really enraged with Charlie. And yeah, I can see that it was silly to be enraged with Charlie. Okay, well, thank you. Goodbye. It's like, but what about your rage toward Mary and Harry and Bill and yourself and that person you look at in the mirror and your dad and your mom and all the places you've attached that energy? Don't you want that miracle? Oh, that's okay. I got this one handled. Everything's cool in my life. And I've seen people disappear for up to 10 years before they come back and go, say what? What was that you said? Tell me that again. How does that work? What is that? And it is the consistent, persistent application of the tool of forgiveness that allows you to change 1,000 generations of programmed insanity. It is beyond comprehension. So we're honored and delighted that you're part of the conversation. Jeanie, anything for you to share today? Are you mute challenged, Jeanie?
It appears she has dropped.
Oh, okay. I've noticed the last day or two when I've been talking to her, something's happened with the phone signal back in Bristol, because I've noticed the last day or two her voice kind of tweaks in and out, and we lose her. So we actually had to get a booster, and maybe if she's listening, we had to get a booster for our signal when we changed our phone supplier, and maybe that booster's off, Jeanie. If you're listening, maybe restart it and see if that helps.
Well, we have a caller. We have a caller.
Let's say hello.
Area code 910, you're in the air.
Hey, this is Susan. Can you hear me?
Welcome, young lady. Good to hear your voice. How are you?
I'm good. I would say I'm really good. I'm in the process of a big shift, I think, in energy, and I'm just calling in for support. Not sure if I would say that it's real appropriate. It'd probably be better if we were in an intensive and I was at Heartland, but, we get what we get, and this is going to have to do for now. I am in an intensive here in Wilmington, and since I'm the leader, I think I better have some help. I'm laughing.
There you go. We're here to support you.
I appreciate that so much. Such a high vitality. We had a great MindShifter group last night, and I think it's absolutely a gift, and I always know that it's very important that I do my own work if I'm to help or support anybody else in doing theirs. So I'm just going to do the best I can with this, and maybe you can lead me. Dr. Tim's been talking to me some along the way, so he may know something and may have some insight. But what I see is I got a breathing session tonight, too. I got a girl coming to help me breathe, so just know that's coming. There's two issues that are in conflict with each other that I can see have been a big part of my relationship most of my life. And they stem from childhood, probably pre-verbal, of feeling abandoned by my mother, and then having the experience of being trapped where I couldn't get away. You know, and a baby really can't get up and just walk away or verbally say, this is not working for me or whatever. So they've been sort of putting a puzzle together over the years. But I noticed that getting in a relationship and having the person leave has been, the abandonment comes up. And it's, you know, I've done lots of worksheets on it, but now I can see in this one a deeper level of feeling trapped and not being able to leave an abusive relationship that's perceived as abuse, which we know everything's perception, everything's in the mind. And, of course, I go back and forth about that I'm creating my reality, so why not stay and clear it instead of running. So I've got that logical stuff going on too. But to get, and I'm not, I can tell that I'm still in it, so if my clarity is off, I'm willing to be coached. But what I'm seeing is one of the people coaching me said to me, I said, I'm trapped. They said, you need to leave. And I was like, I can't leave. I'm trapped. And, of course, I'm an adult, and I have a voice today, and I can leave. But there was a superimposed consciousness or overlay of the past on the present moment of the experience of being trapped in a situation where I was pinned and I couldn't leave. It was like I couldn't leave.
Susan, what's the feeling that goes with this?
Trapped is a thought, isn't it?
Trapped
the thought was
yes.
I'm going to die.
So when I'm trapped, my feeling or my feeling is I can't feel like I'm going to die. That's a thought. So what's the feeling?
Right, I know.
Am I sad? Am I afraid? Am I terrified?
Fear. I think it would be terrified. I think it would be terrified. That I've got to escape, and there's no way to escape, and I can't. So the second thing thought would be that I've got to live through it.
So then,
if I could live.
So then the thought is one. Then it sounds like where you're heading is that this is going to kill me.
Yep.
So the feeling is terror, and the situation, I will die as a result of it. So if you look at, in that situation then, what your goal is, what's the goal?
I think it's to live, to breathe.
Okay. So how about, and for anybody that's new to the forgiveness process, it's going to seem silly, but when you realize that goals drive perception, and if the perception is based in terror, and the active thought is, this is going to kill me, then the way I get to the root of that is by canceling the goal that's driving the mind to use that data so that I can go directly to that data. So would you be willing, really feel yourself in that situation with all that terror and trauma going on? And I cancel my need to live through this. I cancel my need to survive.
Okay. I cancel my goal to live through this. I cancel my goal to survive.
And where does your mind go when you do that?
It felt like I dropped into a black hole or the abyss, like I was going to fall. That was the fear, the thought that came through my mind, is that if I cancel my goal to live and I stop fighting, then I'm going to drop into nothing.
So the thought then is I need to fight to survive?
I've got to be in control.
So it sounds like there are two goals, and I hope you've got a pen handy to tie in there. So I've got to fight to survive. I've got to be in control. So the next layer of it is I cancel my need to be in control. Breathing?
Yeah. And that's pretty right on in my life.
So you want to cancel that goal?
Well, I had the thought just go through my mind that to cancel the goal to be in control or to fight. It's like a race on the board. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
There's no life, because that's been the life.
So you're confronting now the demise of your non-being self. The self that thinks that life consists of controlling, struggling, fighting. And to let go of that self is the death that Yeshua referred to when he said, in order for you to live, you've got to die. When you let that self die, then you have the possibility of being coming into full flood in your physiology and in your life. The restoration to the true being that you are. And the annihilation of this non-being self is one of the most terrifying things that anyone will ever go through. One of the deepest terror-rooted thoughts there is. How about I cancel my need to fight or struggle?
I cancel my need to fight or struggle.
And where does your mind go then?
It's like nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing left.
Oblivion.
It's a space. Yeah, it's a space of I don't know that I've seen that before. Just empty.
So why don't you just breathe into that space? And in that space, imagine the first second that you entered this world from your mother's womb. And there you were as pure being and light. Allow that self to be birthed in this consciousness. Literally being born once again.
It feels like a spark of enthusiasm. of excitement, of just a spark.
In theos. Yeah. In theos means in God, in love. That's human life.
It feels like conception more than being born. It feels like the soul making a contract to come in. The excitement.
And maybe the soul never entered because of the terror that was already in physiology. Maybe the soul, the being, you,
right,
have been hanging around all your life outside of this form because it's too terrible a place to go.
Well, yeah, I believe at birth it was forceps used to pull me into it, so I can believe that I didn't willingly come.
Yeah, that can be a pretty painful process when you think of the
I don't like to be.
of...
Yeah, that's another life story. I don't want to be rushed. Don't rush me. You know, I felt like they rushed me. Wow.
But too often the birth process is done from the point of view of the people around and their convenience, and when the whole process should be about this process of this newborn entering the world, controlled by them.
Thank you. It's a much more peaceful.
So we hold the space.
Yeah, very peaceful where I'm at. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're here to hold the space for you to enter this world of physiology in that delicate space of being and experiencing yourself as that pure, true being instead of what was going on in your form from a trauma-based birth. So can you let yourself just breathe into that and let every cell in your structure catch the aliveness of pure being? You know, at this first moment of entry, what we're each designed to experience is being nurtured and supported in this full-blown, blissful, active presence of love in every cell, just fired on love, like totally, completely beyond comprehension. So just let yourself be in that.
Yeah, the feeling is more like expansive oneness, like real expansive, like just.
In Aramaic, a proper translation of the word heaven is expansion. The kingdom of expansion is within you. That's exactly it. You got it. You just touched it, girl.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
It is. It's awesome. Unless there's a need to say much more, I'd support you just kind of hang out in this space. Thank you for touching us with it.
Much appreciation. Thank you.
All right. You got it. whole community breathes with you and delights in welcoming you into the world. And is honored at your presence. Thank you for touching us and reminding us. So my strongest inclination is that we've got about 12 minutes left in the show. It'd be just 10 the next 12 minutes with you in silence. But that probably wouldn't make for much of a radio show. So I'd invite you to just reinforce that energy with remembering when your son came into the world and tapping into that for him. Remembering when your daughter came into the world, tapping into that for her. Remembering when Liam came into the world, tapping that into that for him, your grandson. Allowing yourself to remember the moment at which your mother came into the world. And tapping that into that energy vicariously for her. Remembering the moment at which your father came into the world. And tapping into that for him. Is the pure pulse of being. And when we allow that to be the energy that runs our physiology, it transforms the content of every cell, of every gene that is ready to be transformed. Is there anything else to share?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm just going to sit here with this space and this energy.
Yay. Well, you have a whole
you.
community of people that have been touched by it and are joining you. So, only you a blessing. Take care.
Thank you.
Jeanie, do we have anything happening in the chat room? Or
We do have another
anyone else
caller.
with a hand up? Great.
We have another caller. It's area code 808. You're on the air.
Is this Miss Roma from Hawaii?
Yeah. Tis I.
Hey there, young lady. Welcome.
Oh, that was so gorgeous. Whew. And I can appreciate your inclination to want to continue in the stream of that magnificent life force flowing.
Yeah, it would be easy for me right now to just not say another word, but
I know.
as I say, the silence on the radio doesn't work too well. So what's on your mind? How can we support you today?
Well, I was in the silence this morning, which I try to do every day before the dawn, and I wondered what your take would be on the 40 days and nights after Yeshua was baptized and he went off into the desert. I wondered what your take on that was, how you would perceive that period of time and evolution in his consciousness and in the evolution of consciousness.
So my take would be that, what comes to mind immediately is incubation periods. Conception occurs, and the incubation period for a child is 9 months. If we go back into some of our most ancient records, we hear that a group of people called the Jews went into a place called the desert. And that's been translated literally, and they spent 40 years there. And, of course, we know factually this was a pretty intelligent group of people, so they knew which way was east and which was west and which was north and which was south. And it's only 30 square miles. They could have been out in a few days. But what it's really talking about is from the time we begin to wake up, the early adopter of the work of forgiveness and the work of truly living as a human being, at that stage took 40 years. And then we see Yeshua, and he goes and spends 40 days. He's cut the incubation period down. And this relates to the story that we've spoken of before, at least for me. In my mind, it all ties together. So thank you for the question, which is what stimulates the tying it together for me. So we're told a story of a man who's a farmer, and he goes out and he hires people in the square to come and work in his fields, 8 o'clock in the morning. And he goes back out, he needs more help, so he goes back out and he finds some more workers at noon, and they come into the field and go to work. He goes back out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and finds more workers, and they come in and they go to work in the field. And at 5 o'clock, when the day's work is finished, the toil is complete, he pays everybody. And he pays the person who came in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the same as he paid the person who came in at noon, the same as the person who came in at 3, and the person who came in at 8. So, well, but wait a minute. Well, why don't I get more than he does? I worked through the hot sun. He didn't get here till noon, and, a guy at 3 o'clock, I mean, come on. And, the early adopters of this work, there's struggle and a lot to go through. And the end result is that whatever your incubation period is, whether you came into the work, several thousand years ago, the time of the 40 years incubation period, or 2,000 years where it was 40 days, or today where it can be 40 seconds, the reward is the same. It's like we can't be given more than the payment we were promised, and that is the opportunity to live as the active presence of love. You can't get a bigger reward. So whatever stage somebody started at, when they achieve the end result, it's the same reward for everybody. We all get it. And thank God for the early adopters who stepped in and did this work, and the people who are still adopting this work at an early stage in their family systems and slugging through what they needed to slug through to achieve this result. And, I'm not sure, it's probably 8 or 9 years ago that Susan started doing this work, and we just watched her in 4 minutes go through, maybe, out of that 40 years, maybe 25 years of work in 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes. And we're looking to shorten the incubation period so that the farmer could come out and hire us at 1:55, and at 5 o'clock we get the reward. So that's what that brings up for me. And we're down to 10 seconds, the phone just told me, so my apology. Everybody have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give